if two people are working, but that really hurts us and it leads to death. And then Proverbs 15:16, better a little with the fear of the Lord than great treasure with turmoil. I love that one, and some of my story is going to be leading towards that. Like sometimes we think we get the American dream, and really all it leads to is a lot of turmoil. And in the end, when it's gone, you're kind of happy that you don't have that turmoil anymore. And then the last in Proverbs is 15:31-32. One who listens to life-giving rebukes will be at home among the wise. Anyone who ignores discipline despises himself, but whoever listens to correction acquires good sense. Well, I think we all want to have good sense, not just sense, but sense, C-E-N-T. So, oh, Shirley and I, just puns all the time. So I have to say, I think the best thing that I've learned in Titus 2, and the one thing that I would pen for myself that Joanne's taught me over those 15 years and 35 years of my marriage is to learn to be teachable. Because if we don't learn to be teachable, we can't grow. We just stagnate at that point if we're not willing to bold and mend and be pliable to what God is calling us to do. And that happens all the time in our life. Sometimes we think we're going to be at this certain level always. And then the Lord says, nope, we're changing it. We're doing this. I'm moving you. I'm changing where you're going. And we have to ask ourselves, will we be teachable and will we be willing to be molded by the hand of God, or will we resist against that? Because it hurts to be molded. It hurts to change. It hurts to do what God asks us to do sometimes. And just like with our own children, we can see in the future of what they may need. They don't necessarily see it. And we just have to keep encouraging. And God looks at us as that way too. He loves us as much as we love our own children. And he's patient with us when we're learning those things. On Valentine's Day this year, my husband and I were married 35 years. Yes, I'm a hopeless romantic. I thought Valentine's Day would be a great day to get married. But the flowers are more expensive, and dinner is always a canned dinner, so I don't recommend it. My son and his wife got married the week after Valentine's Day, so they learned from us. Fortunately, my husband and I both have the same views on money, and we have since we were young. I want to talk to you about some of our victories and also some of our failures in our marriage over 35 years in finances. I'm blessed to say that I had two wonderful parents that taught me biblical principles. You may be surprised to know this, but before David Ramsey ever was, my mom taught me the envelope system. Okay? So I always laugh when people say, do you know the envelope system? Yeah, my mom taught it to me like 45 years ago, okay? So it is really good. It's not a new idea. It's been out there for years and years, and it does work. My mother clearly taught me about tithing at that time. As a teenager, I had 3 older siblings that had already left the home, and I was paid $10 a week to help my mom. Okay, she did the cooking, I did all the cleaning of the dishes. She did the washing, I ironed everything. And I have to say, I'm probably the only woman that learned how to iron sitting down and watching TV. It was an art, and I really loved it. I loved it. When I had my 3rd child, I told my husband, I have to give up ironing. I don't have enough hours in the day to work with you and I. Now we just, do everything quick. But in my younger days, my sister's here, and she can attest to that every Saturday we would spend the whole Saturday morning cleaning the house. And my dad would go out golfing. And my mom would always say, your dad worked all week. This is a really good thing for him to do. He needs a break. But the minute my dad got home, we always went and did something fun. So may have spent the morning cleaning the house for my dad while he was out enjoying golfing. But he always took us out. He'd drive us to a dinner far away, or we always did something fun as a family. And so my parents were really good about not only teaching us about money, but also teaching us the art of being good stewards of our relationships in our family. And sometimes I think that gets lost in America today when we're all running every which way, and we don't spend time with each other. And so I love that my parents modeled it. It was something I brought into my marriage, that more than anything, I wanted to spend as much time as we could with our kids. And when I was really young, Joanne, I used to think if each of my kids had one or two things on the calendar that was reasonable. And I think I've been going to Titus for maybe close to 10 years. And Joanne said to me, you shouldn't do that. You should take them all out of everything. And I said, we're not quitters, Joanne. We're not going to do that. And she said, you go home and ask Mike tonight if he wants. I said, Mike wouldn't want to do that because we don't quit. We'd have to finish the end of the year. I went home and asked my husband, and sure enough, he said, take them out today. So from that point on, and I was like, wow, Joanne is so wise. She knows more than anything. How did she know what my husband thought more than I did? But from that day on, we only let one child have something at a time so that the whole family would go and engage that person and be with them and support them, and then the next child would have something. And I'm really glad that Joanne told me that hard thing and that I was willing to be teachable, because it afforded us time to have dinners together at home. And we were allowed to have quiet time spending instead of running every single night to a different place, to choir, to soccer, to, baseball at the time, all these different things that we did, dance class, all these things, 3 times a week for 3 kids. You're only home then a couple days a week. So it was really great to do that. So thank you, Joanne, for teaching me that. Okay. I want to share another scripture with you in Psalm 119:36. And it says, turn your heart to your decrees and not to material gain. And we all say we're not materialistic. We all want to say that. But when you look at where your money goes, or how you spend your money, or how hard you're working to make money, that really tells the true test. And that's what you have to ask yourself and examine yourself and ask the Lord to show you, am I being materialistic or am I not? I'm really fortunate that my husband, even though we've owned a business for 4 years into our marriage, we bought a business, he is really great about turning it off at 5 o'clock and coming home and being present. He would say, if he was standing here, that all of it just messaged, like during the workday we may be doing something for the kids, and at night we may have to do something for work. So he sees it all as all meshing. But I remember the days when the kids were little where he would come home, have dinner with us, get the kids in bed, and then go back to work after they were in bed so that he wasn't missing time. So I really appreciate that about my husband. I can tell you guys that when we first got married, we were great about staying on a budget because we didn't make that much money. And so it was really easy to only spend what we had. I remember going to Costco one time with my sister, and I had $40 to spend. And she said, well, why don't you just buy that? And I said, well, I can't. I only have $40 today, okay? And we used to add up all of our credit card slips. And when we hit a certain amount, we didn't use our credit card again. We only paid for what we could afford that day. And, that month or whatever, or what we could pay off. So we had really good principles. I have to say, as we started making more and more money with our business, we got really lax with our budget. And we didn't really budget. We would guess, okay, we can do this or that. But I have to say that we became much more laxed and probably spent more money than we should have, just because we had more money. And at that time, for 20 years, my husband and I, we bought our business in 1986, and so we were married 4 years when we bought our business. We bought the business, we doubled it in the first 5 years. Then we bought out his partner, so we actually put our house up as collateral to buy his partner, and then we doubled our business again. Well, over 20 years, we had been through 2 recessions, and each time there was a recession, our business grew bigger and bigger. And so in our mind, we thought, we're always going to be making this kind of money. We had 16 employees. My husband and I worked at our office. I was like Shirley, I didn't want to work, but I worked 3 days a week running the books and payroll and those kind of things. Well, so we were being killed in taxes too, was part of the problem, is we were making so much money that the government was getting everything that we were saving, okay? And at the end of that year, I remember thinking, I'm playing this game wrong. I need more write-offs. So I started looking for a home that would give me a bigger write-off. We prayed about it. We did everything that we really were seeking the Lord on it. And it was really miraculous how we came to buy this home. It was not only our home, but it was also a ministry place where we had women in grief actually were able to stay with us and have their own room and bathroom and a place to grieve when they came. And that was the whole idea of the house, this big house, is that we would be able to do that while the kids were at school. We were on a list to buy this home that we wanted. And I remember thinking, I had picked one lot that I wanted, and I thought, oh, we'll never get that lot because everyone wants it. We were like number 16 on the list. Well, they had lost a mailing to us telling us that they were selling that house, and we had just happened to go in, I think to show my sister that house, okay? And the woman said, well, I said, we didn't get a letter, you're selling it tomorrow? And she said, well, yes, and you're on the list. And I said, well, I think we're number 8 or something. By this time, they had had 3 sellings of phases or 2. And she said, no, I think you're higher up there. Let me make a phone call. So she made a phone call. And she hung up the phone. She goes, actually, you 2 are the number 1 person in line to buy that lot. And it was the lot that everyone wanted. It was miraculous. I felt like God was, and the house, I have to say this, though, in the bad side of us is, it was a lot more money than what we had said was going to be our top. Me and my fashion is like, we'll figure it out. It'll all be fine. You know, I told my husband, we won't put in a yard. You know, we'll just move in and not have a yard. And so we moved into the house. Shortly, and that was I'm going to tell you this date. We moved in on November 19th, 2004. So remember that date. But I want to tell you, we were supposed to move in at the beginning of November. My sister was to fly out and help me move all these boxes into the house because we had 22 people coming for Thanksgiving dinner. Well, lo and behold, the house got flooded before we moved in. We went one day and the whole bottom of the house was flooded, okay? So we lived at the Hyatt Hotel for 2.5 weeks. Okay, my sister ended up being here, and she ended up just staying at the hotel with me. Lots of funny stories there. But interesting. The builder paid for all that, okay? And my husband would say to me often, I think Satan doesn't want us to move to that house, okay? Because so many weird things would happen like that. Like the house flooded. Our house was already sold. The people who bought our house were like, there is no way we are backing up and letting you stay. We couldn't even rent back. So it was really hard. So we stayed there, and then we moved into the house on November 19th. And then we did have 22 people over for Thanksgiving dinner like 4 days later. We unpacked the kitchen first. So the following January, 2005, remember that was the year of the huge last El Nino, I think. Rain came in my son's top bedroom window, and it hit 5 of the rooms in our house. Okay, it took us 3 to 6 months to get the mold remediated in his room. Everything dried out. I had a baby shower at that time at my house with the fans running and everything. Just crazy things happened over and over with this house. But it was repaired, and, you know, we did have grieving moms there, and it was wonderful. So lots of times we can really pray and seek God, and I still, to this day, really think that God was leading us to that home. When we moved in that house, I want to mention, I would have never met Shirley, by the way, because when we were selling our other house, we did a garage sale, and one of Shirley's friends showed up at our garage sale and bought our couch and some other things, and she told me actually about Tracy. She told me about Tracy and Shirley, and that they had been to some meeting, and it went along with my grief thing. And so Shirley and I called each other back and forth, and I had to call her. She was supposed to come to my house for a luncheon because we were introducing a counselor to another church so that they could start a counseling center out here in Santa Clarita. Well, I had to call Shirley and say, you can't come to my house. It was flooded. Can we meet at Coco's? So we did. So Shirley and I met for the first time, which I think sometimes is awful, is not as awful. Like it was good. It was blessing and not blessing. So I think when we're going through these financial hard times, if you can remember that there is amazing blessing in the midst of it, because there is sometimes so much pain when we're going through it. Okay. In 2008, okay, we started to see a decline in our gross income of our company. And went to my husband and said, you know, gross is going down. He's like, no problem. We'll just create this new online product. We'll sell it. no problem at all. So I started borrowing money because we had really good credit. I started borrowing money, a lot of money, on credit cards to pay our employees. Okay, by the latter part of 2009, we had to put our employees on a part-time basis, and California had a plan at that time where you could go on California Work Share. So if you laid off your employee 2 days a week, they would get paid for those days, and then they would work for you the other 3 days. And it was a really helpful program. Most of our employees over a year and a half ended up leaving us in the end, which was a good thing for us because my husband and I are really loyal and we didn't want to lay anybody off. But in the midst of that, we continued to grow debt, and to the point where we couldn't even pay for the house that we had moved into, the house that we had prayed for and we're seeking God on, and the house that we had our ministry in. And so it became really evident that we were going to lose our house. And I tried everything because our credit was good. I really tried with the banks to say, hey, you know my credit's good. I'll figure this out. Give us some time. And they led me down a road that really only led to one place, which was for a short sale. And in the end, I know that God used it for good, even though I begged God to the last minute not to lose that house.